There's certainly a fascinating sit down, more of it available on our website. And of course, an interesting, unique, and rare sit down with the Prime Minister, with our own Sharon Gal. But Israel, as we've alluded to and as discussed there, faces national parliamentary elections by October this year. And the timing, it's pivotal for this small nation, perhaps like never before. And we have open wounds on all of our active war fronts. Internal divisions coming back to the fore around the Prime Minister's political partners, the large ultra-Orthodox Jewish communities who continue to seek and find Netanyahu's cooperation to legislate their way out of national service, economic contribution. And while much still hangs in the balance, of course, in terms of what happens in these next critical months, the political opposition is still seeking its chief figurehead in the long and ongoing struggle to unseat the Likud party led by Benjamin Netanyahu and its far-right and ultra-Orthodox coalition partners today. And to discuss the moment we're in, and we're joined by Ari Tatakar, who's the English director of the Rebel Center. He's the editor of its Noon in Israel newsletter, and much more, getting himself into politics in this country. And good to have you with us as a regular commentator, Ari. Look, I'll start on this. I'm not sure how much we gain. Let's talk about the polls and sort of where things stand. I'm not sure how much we gain from polling at this point, but they keep suggesting that Gadi Eisenkot is on the rise right now, maybe even more popular. A large center-right and left sort of electorate that's really hungry for someone who represents, that term in Israel called mamlachtiyut, or the sort of secular nationalism of the old labor movements, the founding politics. So this is the guy that's trying to sort of harness, that group of the country. But I'll put this out there. Sorry for the long question. Eisenkot, has far less political acumen and experience as a former chief of staff in general than others who have emerged into politics before them, whether it be Ariel Sharon, Rabin, Barak, all who really climbed the political ladder to come in. He's building out a good list, but is there a high chance that, like we saw Gantz, will he be devoured? Will he be outmaneuvered politically when the campaign really gets going? And that political acumen needs to come to the fore. Reason to be concerned about Eisenkot?
As you alluded to earlier, most polls are now showing about Eisenkot and about Likud neck and neck, so around 23 seats. Unfortunately for Eisenkot, the magic number isn't 23, it's 61. And currently, most of his gains are coming at Bennett's expense. And we can keep shuffling around the opposition deck as much as we want, but if they really want to see Netanyahu dethroned in the next election,
seems to be the priority, right? Okay,
certainly. Yeah. And they're going to have to start taking from the coalition's deck. And quite frankly, I don't think Gadi Eisenkot has proven that he can really cause those right-wing voters to defect to the opposition.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions to this, and that mix, the panoply of sort of opposition figures. You mentioned Bennett, dropping as Eisenkot's on the rise. Not sure how this comes together. We're seeing, parties fall below the threshold, some new alliances, Gantz himself. So the opposition, we're not sure what to think about it. Look, one thing that we have not had in this country, and even with 5 elections in 3 years between 2019 and 2022, we never really had any credible claims of cheating or, interference. The system held. Maybe we couldn't all agree on who should be in charge, and that led to, hung elections, essentially. But the system held. Look, we heard the President, Herzog, this week hold a meeting with the head of the Shin Bet, the intelligence service, warning of, I think they termed it, hostile actors who could be out to interfere with the elections here. What are we really discussing here? External interference, internal interference, both? What are the concerns for real?
So the concerns that Herzog mentioned were largely external. He was speaking about potential foreign interference in the electoral system and consulted with the security officials about that.
We can think of a few actors off the top of our heads probably who would be interested in meddling with our elections, of course. Yes, so that's probably a persistent threat. Okay,
quite a few, and everyone will disagree over which side they want to help. But I think the larger problem is Isaac Herzog is playing with fire right now. If this is a genuine threat, I really hope it gets addressed completely and wholeheartedly. But when we start talking electoral interference, I think we've seen the consequences from Russiagate all the way to January 6th. You don't want to be compromising people's beliefs in elections, especially as we approach what will be one of the most contentious elections in Israel's history.
Contentious, pivotal. I think it's hard to overstate how important the election is coming up, of course. Election mode. I mean, here we are. We're coming into it. Let's reverse this. A lot of people talk about the effect of the, the war on the election. But what about the effect of really the election mode on the various war fronts for Israel right now? Are we likely to see a similar sort of freeze as we're kind of seeing around pre-U.S. midterms? what are we likely to see the effect of in the next few months in Israel?
I think when it comes to war policy, the election that's going to have more of an influence is going to be the midterms rather than the Israeli election. Currently, everyone in the opposition and everyone in the coalition are walking around the same line, and the big dispute is who can handle Trump better. Now, that's a question that's up to debate. But
that leads me to my next question. I want to say this there's a lot of people arguing for a rebrand, that we need a rebrand at the top. We can, important to have new faces, perhaps new people dealing with President Trump. What do you say to that?
I think the kind of coalition argument that Netanyahu is the best handler of Trump, we certainly have a lot of good experience to show that. I mean, Ron Dermer is an absolute wizard. I don't think anyone can really deny that. When it comes to a rebrand, it certainly might be beneficial, but quite frankly, we are living in a world where one truth social is the difference between life and death, and perhaps new faces will help. I should certainly hope that we'll get as much cooperation from both sides of the aisle to deal with Trump, because he is a full government issue. But ultimately, we never know which direction the president's going to go.
That does seem to be a good definition of our reality right now, Ari. We live by this day to day. And I know our viewers will be seeing a lot more of you in the coming months as we get into the formal election campaign, whether it's begun or not, debatable, we're in it. Ari, Tatarka, thanks for being with us as we continue with all of our election coverage, giving as much insight as we can to the viewers. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Now, look, they've been on the front line for 120 days, longer if you take into account their previous operations in Gaza. We're talking about 3 specific infantry company commanders